have a confession. Every time I pull the Tower card or the Nine of Swords, I want to put them back, and I know I'm not alone. But if we pull a card that we don't like, can we just change its meaning? Today, I'll share my thoughts, break it down, and even explore other trigger cards, as I am calling them here, just like the Tower and the Nine of Swords, why they're feared, and how you can flip the script. So let's break this down. We've drawn a card we don't like, and for today, I'm talking about or showcasing the Tower card, but there are others which we'll get into later in the video. We are having a really strong reaction to the card. Can we shift the card's meaning? To me, the answer is fluid. Sure, we could ignore the card, we could put it back and move on, or we could challenge ourselves to sit with the meaning. It's not about rewriting the meaning per se, but it's about understanding why this card is showing up for us right now. The hardest part is when a trigger card pops up when life is feeling good. When we pull the Tower during a rough time, we might think, well, there's nowhere else to go but up from here. But when life is feeling stable and then we pull the Tower, that's when fear creeps in. But maybe there's more to it than that. One way that we can change the meaning, or at least gain more clarity, is by pulling additional cards. Clarifying cards gives us more insight into how the Tower's energy might unfold and where it's showing up in our lives. They help to make the message more specific, putting as many pieces together as we can. Of course, though, the Tower can still signal an unexpected left field change, and we won't always have the answers. Clarifying cards can help us find context and direction, but I also want to kind of give a warning in that we shouldn't rely just on the clarifying cards to then become the meaning. So the Tower is still the Tower, right? And using clarifying cards shouldn't be the focus. They should just add to it. So for example, the World, let's say, is our clarifying card here. And the World is about a completion. Something is finally coming to an end. It's concluding. So maybe there's some hardship or something underlying that's been going on for a while now that's really kind of flipped your life upside down, and you've been steadily building back up. So maybe paired with the World here, the clarity is that this hardship, this Tower moment, is finally coming to a point of completion where you have spent enough time and healing to finally be able to move on from something, to really feel that star moment that comes after. Because sometimes I feel like we don't always allow ourselves to feel that star moment, or we're not sure when that star moment is. So the World could indicate that it's time to start entering that star moment. You've done the work, the hard thing has happened, and you've been building, but really it's time to start entering that star moment, and maybe like a little celebration about it. To me, adding clarifying cards is not changing the meaning, it's deepening our understanding. What is tricky though is when we want to pretend that we pulled the Sun card instead of the Tower. And facts are facts. The Tower will never be the Sun card. That's not its lesson. But the Tower can lead to the Sun. So maybe the real question becomes, how can we navigate our Tower moments in a way that help us return to the Sun, right? So now I wanted to speak about not just the Tower card, because I think that is the most infamous one that all kind of strikes a chord of fear within us. I also wanted to bring forward other cards. So the first one I have is the Ten of Swords. Why is this card feared? It often depicts someone laying on the ground with 10 swords stabbed in their back, which is it's a dramatic depiction. So it's seen as the card of betrayal and painful endings or ultimate failure, and most people associate it with that deep emotional or physical pain. How can we evolve the meaning here? How can we go deeper? So while the Ten of Swords represents very painful endings, it also offers a powerful message of release. And not to get too gory here, but the swords in this person's back is letting out blood, right? We're bleeding, we're releasing, and it can signal the end of a painful chapter, and the endings of anything don't always feel the greatest. The worst is over, and now it's time to move forward. It's a reminder that sometimes the only way to heal is to let go of the past and make room for new opportunities, right? Another trigger card I have is the Devil. So why is the Devil card feared, or why do we have that visceral reaction to it? It's often because it represents temptation or addiction or being trapped in a negative pattern, almost like Groundhog's Day, where we're waking up to the same every day, it's the same, and we get so tired of it. We get scared that we'll never wake up and have a new day, right? In that this problem will never go away. I'll never be able to break the chains of this devil. It can bring up feelings of being controlled either by external forces or even by our own desires and attachments. So how can we change or evolve the meaning here? So the devil isn't necessarily a bad card, even though it's most often portrayed that way. It can actually serve as a warning or a wake-up call. So instead of seeing it purely as a sign of negativity, we can ask ourselves, what is holding me back? What is preventing me from moving forward? Because that's what the devil is about. It's about breaking free from unhealthy attachments and gaining a better understanding of where we're limiting ourselves. Let's talk about another tough one, the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is often feared because it's depicted with a heart pierced by three swords, which represents heartbreak and grief or emotional pain. This card evokes feelings of sadness and loss and betrayal. It's really hard when you're faced with this card, but we can think about it a little bit differently. While the Three of Swords really does represent pain, it does teach us about the healing process. So after heartbreak comes recovery, and after sorrow comes the possibility of emotional growth. This card can encourage us to feel our feelings, to acknowledge them, not to bury them, because we might have been suppressing them, and acknowledge those emotional wounds as part of our journey, not separate from our journey. It's a reminder that healing begins only when we allow ourselves to experience that loss and pain and begin to release them. Now let's talk about the Death card. And I feel like right off the bat, just from the name alone, people get scared about the Death card coming up in a reading. And that's because it is misunderstood as a literal omen of doom because it is kind of depicted in that way. But within the tarot, it rarely signifies physical death. The imagery of skeletons and scythes and dark landscapes and the people below here can feel very ominous and symbolize endings and loss and a big dramatic change. It's often feared because it signals transformation, and let's be honest, change, even when necessary, can be really scary. So how do we flip the script on this? Rather than seeing the Death card as just a destructive card, it really represents rebirth. It clears away what no longer serves us, making space for something new. Endings can be painful, as we've discussed, but they also bring opportunities for growth and renewal and transformation. And I have to be honest with you, after going through something very challenging, I don't want to be the same person that I was. I want to be different. I want to have learned. I want to know how to never put myself in that type of position again, or just how can I do better for next time. So this card can teach us to embrace that change as a natural part of life instead of trying to go against it or be in denial about it, and to trust that what comes next has the potential to be even better. Now I want to talk about a card that might not seem scary, but it's a personal tie for me. So the Eight of Cups was a personally fearful card because I was going through something where I knew the answer, and the answer was the Eight of Cups. I knew that I had to walk away, but I didn't feel confident in myself to be able to pick myself back up. And I want to talk through why I was fearing this card a little bit more. It features a figure walking away from a collection of 8 cups, which symbolizes a decision to leave something behind. And I am not a person that likes to make decisions. I have a problem with it. It's like no matter how big or small the decision is, it's a large decision to me. I didn't want to have to leave behind because it meant change. I am someone that change can be scary depending on the context. In other ways, I embrace change, which is really interesting and something to dig in personally for me. But I feared this card because it represented an emotional withdrawal and leaving something behind that was no longer serving me. It was about loss and unfulfilled potential. And I took it really personally because I'm the one that put myself here in a way. I was responsible for part of it and how I got there. But I've done a lot of work with the Eight of Cups and trying to understand its message a little bit more. It might have felt like a card of failure or abandonment in a way for me. But what it's really trying to tell me, and what it was telling me, is that you need courage to move on from things that no longer bring you joy or fulfillment. And it is okay to have to walk away. It is okay to let go. I try my hardest. I rarely give up. I am with something. I dedicate myself to the bitter end. So to learn that lesson was really difficult. It calls to a deeper meaning of satisfaction. It asked me to embrace the unknown, which it was really hard for me at that time in my life. And to venture towards something better is something I couldn't see what it was. It was very shrouded. But that's kind of the point of the Eight of Cups. We don't know. We're just taking those steps to be able to find out. And ultimately, the greatest growth can come from letting go of things that were once meaningful but have just run their course. And that's a hard truth to come to terms with. So while the imagery isn't scary, the overall message in general isn't scary, how it applied to my life was very scary for me. So even though these cards, among others, can feel intense or scary, it's important to approach them with a mindset of exploration and curiosity. They aren't bad cards. They're just cards that bring up difficult energies, transformative energies, energies of change. And in general, people don't like change. They like their creature comforts. They like to feel safe. They like the expected. They like to know their routines and their schedules. All of those things are comforting to us. But rather than running away from these meanings, being in denial, putting it back in the deck, pretending it never happened, or trying to make it into a meaning that it's not, such as with the Tower and the Sun, the real growth happens when we lean into those messages, when we learn from them and see how they can guide us through those tough times. Each of these cards that I've shown here today holds a piece of wisdom. I need you to know something, and this was a hard lesson for me to learn. And it's something I do still struggle with. So you're not alone if you do too. But these cards are not here to punish us. They're here to help us grow, to let go, to transform. And when you pull one of these trigger cards, instead of fearing it, you can ask yourself, what is this card trying to teach me right now? The hardest part of my journey was moving through denial, because denial is a coping mechanism, but it's not impossible to maneuver through denial. What it takes is acknowledging our feelings about a particular card as it happens, just seeing how does our body feel, what are we thinking, doing that without judgment, because that can help us move through that discomfort and be a little bit more okay with it. And that is all we need to get our foot in the door to being a little more curious and wanting to know a little bit more about what this card is here to teach us. Not leading with the fear, but curiosity. And I always try to remember that because I still have visceral, like my body even tenses up when certain cards come forward. But it's okay to sit with these cards, to ask more questions, to express what feels unsettling to us, because that is part of emotional release, and that alone is very powerful. So can we change the meaning of a card? Yes and no. I know, you would think I would have a more clear answer by the end of this, but the card means what it means. The Tower is what it is, but the context shifts based on where we are in life. Tarot is fluid. It's fun, but it's also deep work. Thank you all so much for watching and being part of this discussion today. Let me know in the comments, can you change the meaning of a card if you don't like it? What do you think? And until next time, see you around.